Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Way of the Underhive, and this series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on today's episode, we will discuss playing a Venator Bounty Hunter gang in the Aranthian Succession Campaign setting. Now, the overview of this video will be talking about the strengths and weaknesses of playing a Venator gang. We'll also talk about the positive and negative effects of playing in the Aranthian Succession. We'll talk about some of the previous issues that Venators had faced in earlier editions of Necromunda and how the Aranthian Succession deals with that, as well as talk about some of the best alliances that work best in a Venator gang. We'll give you a starting roster that's valued at 2,400 points for you to start your very first campaign in the Aranthian Succession, and we will give you a gang overview and showing you exactly how to use that gang on the tabletop, and then lastly we'll give you our overall thoughts of the Aranthian Succession and using a Venator gang within it. And as always, because this video is a little bit more of a deeper dive, we will put timestamps down in the description box below so that we can navigate to the part that is most appropriate to you. So with that being said, let's go and talk about playing Venators in the Aranthian Succession. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to talk about when it comes to playing a Venator gang within the Aranthian Succession is their strengths. In a Venator gang, versatility is your friend. Every single one of your fighters and fighter types have 4 different stats lines that you can choose from for your individual fighters. So that way you can customize your loadout for your gang to whatever stats fits best for your particular playstyle. At the same time, whenever you create a Venator gang as well, you get to customize your skills as well. You get to pick 2 primary as well as 2 secondary skills of your choice, which is absolutely fantastic. And when you combine that with the 4 stats per fighter, that's really going to help you create a gang that really suits your play style and what you want to achieve on the tabletop as well. Another strength that Venator gangs also have is their choice of weapons and equipment, because the only thing that prevents them from getting different types of weapons and equipment are basically rarity values, and that's really about it. You can even actually take some of the house specific weapons and equipment as well if you decide to use what's called a house legacy in your gang, so that way you can purchase those specific pieces of equipment for your gang as well. So if you're one of those kind of players who likes a mixed bag of everything within a gang, this is the gang for you because you can customize it to any way that you want it to do it. Now, the weakness of playing a Venator gang is that while it is very customizable to whatever you want to play, it's also going to cost you a lot of points in order to do so. In a Venator gang, traditionally speaking, you're always outnumbered, and that applied for both in the Underhive as well as the Ashwaste, and this still applies for Aranthian Succession as well. You will not have as many fighters as your enemies will, potentially, because your fighters are so expensive to deploy. Another thing you also got to worry about too with the Venator gang is that you don't have access to juvies, prospects, or even vehicle crews. Though those are customizable, at least at the time of this video being recorded, to actually add that in your gang as well. So for example, you can't have any juvie meat shields to protect your fighters, you can't hire prospect characters that got cool, unique esoteric skills or abilities, and you definitely don't have access to your own vehicle crews as well. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you decide to make a Venator gang as well. Another thing also got to worry about too about playing a Venator gang is you got to beware the balance bandwagon. The balance bandwagon people like to throw fits about everything that doesn't really apply, that doesn't really help them out in any way. So anytime that your opponents have, if you're a Venator player, you have some kind of edge or some kind of preconceived idea about what your gang's about, there's always going to be some weak player out there complaining about how overpowered Venators are and etc. So you do have to worry about their griping and complaining, but just like always, if you do run into that kind of situation, just ignore the hate and destroy them on the tabletop, because that's what Venators do best. So now that we're done talking about the strengths and weaknesses of playing a Venator gang, let's go and talk about the positive and negative effects of playing in the Aranthian Succession. So first of all, we're going to talk about the positive and negatives of playing in an Aranthian Succession campaign. So let's start with the positives. You have 2,000 credits that you can spend on your gang whenever you first create it, if you're staying in the Underhive. If you're planning on venturing out into the Ashwaste, you actually have 2,400 credits to play with, and that is what we're actually going to use for our list building for this video. We're going to assume the fact that you want to play both inside the Underhive as the Ashwaste, and so your starting roster will be at 2,400 credits. Now, unfortunately, many people look at that price increase of 2,400 credits for a gang that you can start with, and they get the negative attitude about it. A lot of people assume that what you want you to do is to actually spend twice as much money to purchase twice as many fighters to meet that core requirement of 2,400 credits. And actually, that's not the way you should actually look at it, all right? A lot of people think you should buy a 100,000 point gang and then double it, but they're wrong. In this situation, what you want to go for more is for quality rather than quantity of your fighters, and equip your fighters accordingly. So instead of just doubling the number of fighters that you would have in a starting gang, what you want to do is just stick with the normal amount that you'd always have when you first start out a gang, like a box set, for example, would be perfect. But instead of just buying like really cheap weapons and really cheap equipment, actually equip them accordingly. Give them really good weapons, give them really good armor, give them war gear that you normally would not purchase at the beginning of a campaign, and spend your money on that, your point values on that in order to equip your gang. That way you can save a lot more money in an Aranthian Succession. So instead of having 20 fighters in your gang, you maybe just have maybe 8 fighters, but they're all fully equipped with everything they need to be successful in your games of Necromunda. And that's actually one of the cool positives of an Aranthian Succession, is that you could really build really powerful gangs and make them very elite. Now, let's go and talk about the negatives of an Aranthian Succession campaign. And first and foremost, it's going to be the balance bandwagon, especially if the people who are part of that balance bandwagon haven't received any upgrades yet. Unfortunately, Games Workshop just never releases everything all at once when it comes to these new campaign settings. It's kind of like a slow power creep. I guess it's a part of a marketing strategy. Personally, I feel it does a lot more harm than good in my opinion, but whatever the situation may be, that's going to be a thing you got to worry about, because a lot of balance bandwagon people are going to complain about like how gangs become overpowered and you can exploit too many things, and if they're playing a game that hasn't received any upgrades yet, they're definitely going to complain about that. But as always, just ignore their complaints and tell them to put up or shut up or don't play the game. It's that simple. Now, like I said before, many people think that 1,000-point gang and doubling it is the way you go about making a gang for an Aranthian Succession campaign, but you don't need to do that. In fact, just start with a normal gang that you already have on hand and just fully equip them and make them as elite as you want them to be, so that way they can survive whatever the Underhive or the Ashways throws at them as well. At the same time, another negative about an Aranthian Succession campaign is that you may not be into narrative play. And if you're not into narrative play, this may not be interesting to you. I'm just going to flat out say that right now. Aranthian Succession has a lot of narrative-based scenarios that usually use different gangs and very specific gangs to be in those narratives. So if you don't like playing narrative, this might not be an interest for you. But if you want to use the Aranthian Succession rules to build gangs for different campaigns, I highly suggest that. I think that'd be really cool as well. So now that we're done talking about the positive negatives of playing in an Aranthian Succession, let's go and talk about House Orlok and how it pertains in this new campaign setting. So let's go and talk about how the Aranthian Succession helps out Venator gangs specifically in that campaign setting. The nice thing about the Aranthian Succession, you have anywhere between 2,000 to 2,400 credits to fully equip your gang. And that's actually quite a bit. Like we mentioned before, a lot of people think that when you make a 2,000 point gang for the Aranthian Succession, they want you to double the size of a starting gang, but that's incorrect. What you want to do is keep a core group of gang members, maybe around 8 to 10 fighters, and really fully equip them with the best weapons, equipment, and war gear that's going to help you be successful on the tabletop. And this is where Venators really shine, and the reason why is because Venators cost so many points and have their high cost points. Having this ability to have a larger pool of resources in order to create your gang is only going to pay off dividends for you as well. At the same time, house legacies are actually now a viable option for Venator gangs as well. As I mentioned in earlier videos, you would have to pay 30 credits for each of your fighters to have a house legacy of their choice. By getting that house legacy, you have access to things like their house specific weapons, equipment, brutes, hanger-ons, that sort of thing as well. And in earlier editions of the Necromunda, that was actually kind of a huge cost to pay for your gang in order to equip them with the house legacy. So because a lot of players actually ignored this option, but with the 2,000 points that you have to actually equip your gang, that's actually a viable option now. And a perfect example for this is like getting a house legacy, Delac legacy for one of your gang members. That way you could pay another 30 credits to make them to a psyker, for example, if you want to do it that way. So that's the example of how a lot of things within the Aranthian Succession kind of takes care of a lot of the issues that Venator gangs had in the past as well. Another thing that's really going to help out Venator gangs as well is the access to alliances on this one. Now, unfortunately for Venators do not have any strong alliances with anybody, and the reason why is due to the mercenary and bounty hunting nature of their gang. They don't actually come from any specific house, so because they're not going to have any strong alliances with any of their gangs. Now, you could argue, of course, that by purchasing a house legacy for your leader of your gang, you could argue that they could have a strong legacy, strong alliance with that house's allies if you want to. I would ask your arbitrator first if that's going to be a thing for you, because that rule is kind of murky right now. There's no real defined ruling on that. So because of that, if you plan on doing that, like for example, let's say you wanted to have a strong alliance with the Guild of Coin, for example, so you bought a House Orlok legacy for your leader to establish that, you might want to ask your arbitrator if they'll allow that or not. So that's something you want to go in mind here. What I'm talking about with this video, I'm just going to assume that there are no strong alliances for a Venator gang, and that's how I'm going to kind of roll with it when it comes with the alliances for this gang. So in my opinion, when it comes to Venator alliance, you're automatically going to have options to get guild or merchant guild alliances, also noble house alliances as well. You really won't have access to outlaw alliances unless your gang becomes an outlaw gang. So because of that, for some of the better options for this, I would suggest a couple of different alliances that might help you out. First of all, Guild of Iron is actually a really good choice for a Venator gang because it reduces the cost of more expensive weapons, so you can really out-equip your gang with some really powerful firepower with that. And plus, having that option to have D3 plus 2 Hive Scum to help round out your numbers is always a nice thing, because that's just expendable chaff that you could use to protect your more valuable fighters. So that's something that also makes a good one as well. The Guild of Coin as well as House Aranthian are also good for income generation for this gang as well. Like I said before, a Venator gang is quite pricey in their point values, so having the ability to generate credits for your gang to purchase better equipment and get more fighters is always a boon, so that would be a good one to use as well. For me personally though, I actually think that the alliance with House Helmar is actually a good balance between having the additional firepower that you need as well as income generation as well. The House Helmar alliance gives you the access to the Paladin Companions for the Enforcer Bodyguards. We have those really powerful disintegration guns that can really help you out as well. And at the same time, you can also drum up additional coin with actually being able to double tap a territory to generate further income for your gang as well. So regardless of what alliance you take, the idea you want to go with is make sure you pick an alliance that's going to show up your gang's weaknesses. So for example, if you're a close combat oriented gang, you might want to make an alliance that has really powerful shooting elements. Or if you're a very powerful shooting gang, maybe make an alliance that has a really good access to like a lot of firepower, for example. Or for example, let's say you have a lot of plasma and blaze weapons in your gang, then make an alliance with the Prometheum Guild. Or if you want to make sure you can capture bounties, make an alliance with the Guild of Water, so the Water Guild. So whatever the one it is, whenever you have a weakness with your gang, take a look at your gang list, find what you might be weak in, and then make an alliance that could help you out to shore those weaknesses. Now when it comes to hanger-ons, brutes, and hired guns for the Venators, you are kind of limited on what you can actually take, and the reason why is because of the fact that your gang doesn't really have access to some of the more esoteric brutes and hired guns that are available out there, because more often than not you have to belong to a noble house, or sorry, not noble house, you have to belong to one of the core gangs in order to do so. However though, in Aranthian Succession, the road dock is very important for obvious reasons. The reason why is because you cannot resupply your fighters in the opening rounds of the Aranthian Succession, so having a road dock to take care of your fighters is pretty powerful with that as well. Now you could of course get a house legacy if you want a specific brute hired gun or a hanger-on, so that does kind of come into effect. So if you're looking for a house specific brute, a house legacy could help you out with that one. But then again, the general hanger-ons, brutes, and hired guns that you can get as a normal gang that's not affiliated with any house are pretty good. For example, you can't go wrong with ambots. They're good at generating income, they're good for close combat fighters, and they could also be purchased by your gang as well, because they're a hired gun and a brute that anybody can recruit. So that's something you might be looking into. Alright, so let's go and talk about your starting roster for the Aranthian Succession. This video event is going to be a Venator gang for the Aranthian Succession at 2,400 points, so that way you can go out to the Ash Waste if you want to as well. Now this list is going to be a little bit different than most lists that I make, and the reason why is because for most lists I like to make really shooting heavy lists, but this one's going to be more of a combat list, so let's go and talk about what that entails. Your primary skills for this one are going to be combat and ferocity, so that way you can get stuck into your opponents in close combat and have that ferocity to help back you up to make sure you don't get pinned. And your secondary skills will be shooting as well as savant. Now for your leaders, going to be hunt leaders, it costs 260 credits, or you give this guy the close combat stats for that really good aggressive build. He's going to have an armor undersuit and mesh armor for that 4-up armor save, as well as an auto pistol with a hand flamer combo weapon, so that way you can set people on fire and shoot your opponent with the auto pistol, and you're going to combine that with man-stopper rounds to give you strength 4 attacks. You're also give yourself a servo claw to make you tougher in close combat, as well as the iron will skill, so that way you have one less to worry about when it comes to taking your break test, because this gang's kind of small, but it's kind of elite for that same reason. Now your first hunt champion is going to cost you 255 credits. This guy's going to have close combat stats with armored undersuit and mesh armor for that 4-up armor save. They're going to be equipped with an autogun flamer combo weapon, so that way they can set opponents on fire at strength 4 with the flamer, and they can shoot at medium to long ranges. You're going to give them an auto pistol with man-stopper rounds for a backup weapon, as well as nerves of steel, so that way if they get hit, they can escape pinning by passing their cool test. Hunt champion number 2 is going to cost you 280 credits. This guy's going to have the close combat stats as well with armor undersuit and mesh armor for 4-up armor save, a heavy rock cutter for close combat, and an auto pistol with man-stopper rounds for close medium range shooting and rain of blows, so that way if he's in range of his enemies, he can use that fighting as a simple action and just chop people apart with that heavy rock cutter. Now for your hunters, hunter number 1 is going to cost you 175 credits. This guy's going to have close combat stats, as well as armor undersuit with mesh armor, as well as a grenade launcher with frag and crack grenades, and an auto pistol with man-stopper rounds, so that way they have a backup weapon. Hunter number 2 will cost you 140 credits with close combat stats, as well as mesh armor. This guy will have a bolt gun and auto pistol with man-stopper rounds for some medium to long range shooting. And hunter number 3 is going to cost you 130 credits. This guy's going to have close combat stats with mesh armor, an auto gun with a gun shroud and telescopic sight, so that way you can gauge targets at distance and it be suppressed, as well as an auto pistol with man-stopper rounds. Then you're going to have 3 more hunters after that. Hunter 4 is going to cost you 165 credits. They're going to have close combat stat line with an armor undersuit and mesh armor for that 4-up armor save, twin swords for close combat, as well as blasting charges for that very powerful strength 5 5-inch blast template weapon. Cannot be understated how powerful that really is. Hunter number 5 will cost you 155 credits with close combat stats. They also have an armor undersuit and mesh armor with an auto pistol with man-stopper rounds, an axe, and blasting charges. And hunter number 6 is equipped exactly the same at 155 credits. And then you're going to spend your 50 credits to recruit a rogue doc, because you'll need that for the Aranthian Succession. And for your vehicles, you're only going to have one vehicle in this gang. You're going to have a Guild of Coin Haulers, so it costs you 635 credits. So you are taking 235 credits out of your starting gang for the Guild of Coin Hauler. The reason why is because that guy's going to be driving around a Guild of Coin Chronos Patterned Iron Crawler. That thing is really hard to kill. It's really powerful. Also it gives you a transport cage where your guys can shoot out of with their powerful weapons towards your enemy. You're also going to equip the driver with photo goggles so that way they can drive in the dark in case they're out in the middle of the ash wastes. Now, the Guild of Coin Chronos Patterned Iron Crawler will have a grenade launcher with frag and crack grenades for a weapon, as well as a blade of armor with crash cage, so that way your guys are more survivable in your vehicle, and same thing with your crew members. A weapon stash to reload any weapons that you might run out of ammo for. A redundant drive system, so that way if there's a hit to the drive you can still roll. All-wheel steering for better handling. Nitro burner for increased speed, as well as an engine shell to protect your engine in case of a catastrophic hit goes directly towards your engine. So you don't really have a lot of offensive capabilities in the Iron Guild of Coin Hauler, and the reason why is because the Iron Crawler is patterned to be more survivable with some of the hits that is coming its way, and plus when you have the idea that you can shoot from your transport cage with your weapons already, you really don't need all that much firepower to start off the campaign with. You can get that later on as the campaign develops. Now you are going to take an alliance with this gang, and this alliance is going to be the Noble House Alliance with House Helmwar, because it's a good balance of shooting as well as income generation for your gang as well. Because this gang is a close combat oriented gang, having the Paladin Enforcer bodyguards is going to be really nice to have for that long range shooting because they're powerful weapons. Now the Paladin Companions are both equipped exactly the same. Both have armor undersuits and layered flak armor, so they got that 4-up armor save. Both have those really powerful rapid fire strength 5 disintegration guns. Those things are beast, and they're going to be killing a lot of people with those weapons as well. Both have stub guns, both have magnacles, and both have overwatch as well as the fearsome traits, so these guys are going to be really provide a lot of support for your gang. The magnacles are actually kind of nice because since you're a bounty hunting gang, this is going to really help you capture those people to sell those bounties and sell those captives, so that's kind of a nice thing that kind of works together with this as well. Now when it comes to your gang overview, you're going to actually have 4 fire teams in this gang. You're going to have 2 assault fire teams and 1 support fire team. Assault fire team number 1 consists of your hunt leader, hunter number 5, hunter number 6, Paladin Companion number 1, and Paladin Companion number 2. Assault fire team number 2 is going to consist of champion number 2 and hunter number 4. Support fire team number 1 is going to have hunt champion number 1 and hunter number 1. And then your support fire team number 2 will consist of hunters number 2 and 3, as well as your Guild of Coin Hauler. So now that we're done talking about the list, let's go and talk about how you'll be using this gang on the tabletop with the gang overview. Alright, so let's talk about the gang overview real quick. So as you can see, I got a little bit of a presentation here for like a strip map, so that way we can talk about exactly what you need to do in order to take on your enemy. So let's pretend that your enemy is smart and actually has two fire teams, kind of like divide their gang into fire teams like you will do. Now your entire gang will actually be loaded up in the Iron Crawler, and what you're going to use the Iron Crawler for is to protect yourself while you drive closer to your enemy to do the assault. You're going to lob some attacks using the grenade launcher from the Iron Crawler as well, but don't forget you also have a transport cage which allows you to fire outside of that. So all those powerful weapons like the disintegration gun from your Paladin Enforcers, for example, blasting charges that you have for your weapons as well, the same thing with all your auto weapons, you can actually shoot out of this thing as you're closing your distance with your enemy, causing all kinds of problems for them. Now granted, of course, as the campaign develops, by all means get more powerful shooting weapons on your Iron Crawler, but for now though, this is actually a good way for you to get closer to it. And don't forget, your Iron Crawler also has a lot of backup redundancies for a lot of its systems, so that way if any components get damaged, your Iron Crawler can still keep on rolling and going at it. Now what's going to happen is this: your support fire teams 1 and 2 are going to stay on the Iron Crawler for the most part if they're able to. The real killers are going to be your assault teams. So let's go and talk about that first. First of all, assault team number 1 and assault team number 2 will disembark from the Iron Crawler and go over the two halves of your enemies. Now your hunt leader, as well as hunters number 5 and 6, these guys will be the ones taking point forward as they go towards the enemy, and the reason why is because these guys are armored blasting charges. They got that really powerful grenade attack, so you can open up those grenade attacks first and cause all kinds of problems. You're then going to have your leader then open fire with their hand flamer to set guys on fire before you go through. While that's happening, Paladin Patrolman number 1 and Paladin Enforcer number 2 will be providing long-range support with Overwatch, firing their disintegration guns at any enemies that try to activate to protect your assault going through. Now your assault team number 2, for example, which consists of your champion number 2 and hunter number 4, will be doing exactly the same thing, going forward and getting stuck in with your enemies as quickly as possible, so that way they can set guys, blow guys up with their blasting charges. They're chopping guys apart with their heavy rock saw, causing all kinds of problems too. Now while this is occurring, your support teams are actually still on the Iron Crawler, firing from their transport cage at the enemy in order to protect your assault as they go forward. Now with that being said though, these support teams could also cause a lot of problems for your enemies as well. If you want to, you can do a situation where you actually kind of go like this. So let me take back your assault team real quick. So pretend your assault team is actually disembarked earlier. You could actually have your support fire teams dismount kind of like this with your champion, for example, and your hunter. So probably those long-range support. They can actually dismount and lob long-range support fire towards your enemy, and then your assault fire team can then move into a flank, kind of like this, and then from there they can then assault towards their opponents. Let me see if I can get this fixed real quick. Well, anyways, you get the idea. They come through, and then from there your hunters and your champions, for example, can then come from an exposed flank and charge right through to your enemy, for example. So they can attack right through and catch your enemy in a crossfire, for example. And you can do exactly the same thing with your support fire teams. Or if your assault fire team could act as a suppressive element, your support fire team can then go into a flank like this if you want to, and do exactly the same thing. If you'll notice, I do a lot of the same kind of tactics for my video because overall speaking, that's pretty much how it works. You suppress your enemy from the front or from the flank if you can. You assault through to exposed flank, and that way your enemy's caught in a crossfire, and then you can completely destroy them that way. You see this technique I use in almost all my videos because it's the most basic tactic that actually works, and that's pretty much how I kind of roll, because why mess with something that's simple, elegant, and at the same time does exactly what it does. And this is pretty much how it's done. You just kind of fix and then flank your opponent and take him out that way. And this is exactly how you'd use this particular list in your games of Necromunda for the Aranthian Succession. So in conclusion, upgrading your gang to an Aranthian Succession campaign is a great way to fully equip your gang with powerful weapons, war gear, as well as vehicles. With new vehicles dropping all the time, this could be a really fun way to equip the gang of your gang of your dreams and bring them out into whatever situation you want to run into. Now, I wouldn't stress about doubling the size of your gang, like I said before. The reason why is because a lot of the scenario rules that you actually see that are out there still limits the number of fighters you can take, so don't worry about doubling the size of your gang. Rather, take the gang that you have and really concentrate the equipment that they take with them, so that way they can really survive whatever goes their way. Remember, in Aranthian Succession, quality reigns over quantity with your gang builds, so always keep that in mind. And as always, I will be dropping new videos on this topic for the Aranthian Succession with other gangs to help you out on your Necromunda journey. So that's good for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.